Welcome to the Holistic Health Bites podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Nicholson, crime scene investigator turned functional health investigator. This podcast is here to share bite-sized episodes and unique interviews on a wide variety of health topics to empower, enlighten, and educate you to live your best, most vibrant life. Disclaimer: all information you hear on this podcast is for information only and constitutes individual opinions of the person speaking. This should not be taken as medical advice. Being a listener of this show does not initiate a practitioner-client relationship between you and the hosts or panelists on this show. Please discuss these topics with your medical professionals before making any changes to your health. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome back to the Holistic Health Bites podcast. Today, we're going to talk about adrenal health and how it relates to metabolic health and just stress management in general. And I am joined today by a world-renowned expert, the adrenal whisperer, Dr. Tricia Pingel. And she is going to tell us all about her story and some of the things that she has done to empower people to completely change their lives. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, so happy to be here. Let's do this.
Yes, I'm so excited. So will you just kind of do a brief introduction about you and how you got into this space?
Oh gosh, yes, of course. Well, first of all, I'm Dr. Tricia Pingel. I'm a naturopathic physician. I'm a stress and cortisol expert, which is where the adrenal whisperer comes from. And, my story is so much like so many women, I find. It's like, I'm a woman. I want to do it all. I'm an overachiever. I'm always trying to take on too much. I'm an only child, first of all. So I think that kind of says I'm always trying to do everything myself. But I started working at a young age as a fashion model at age 13, thrown into an industry where that completely distorts reality for a young girl on how to feel about yourself. And I'm doing all this while trying to be a teenager. And then life just starts throwing punches at me, just like most people out there. My dad died, I get married, I open a practice, I go to medical school, I have kids. And I literally just powered through like a champ, right?
Like we all do.
It's just like, oh, it's just stress. It'll pass. Oh, we'll move on. Oh, it's fine. Like I can handle this. And at the time, I just didn't realize how much of an impact that was having on my health. And from the time I was young, I had stomach aches and constipation and heavy menstrual cycles, anxiety, insomnia, depression. I looked ill. I think a lot of the times when I was younger, and I kept going to the doctors and they're like, "Oh, you're fine. Yeah, that's just normal. It's cool." And being dismissed. And fast forward many, many years till my mom was passing of cancer. I was around 39, 40 years old, and it just hit me. It was like all the grief I hadn't processed, all of the people pleasing I had done, and the stress and everything I had buried into my soul that was eating me alive just kind of came to a head. And I think so many of us just assume that stress is just something you deal with and not something you can handle and not something you can do. And we don't realize so much how much it really does impact everything: our blood sugar control, our gut health, our sleep, our mood, our looks, our weight gain, anything that us women worry about on top of everything else. Being a good parent, being kind to somebody, not snapping at everyone, not forgetting what you walked into a room for, all these things that we just think, oh yeah, it's just perimenopause, or oh yeah, it's just normal. I always forget where my keys are. Like these are things that are actually signs that stress is having an impact. So over the last 10 years, I've reconnected not only with myself, but others. And it's just totally different. The way I look at life is different. The way I treat patients is different. The way I parent is different. And I have so much energy and love for myself. And now I can now recognize, hey, stress is really having an impact on me. And I know what to do. And so I'm just on a mission. I'm on a mission to reconnect all of you with yourself and with the others, because you don't have to live that way. You can live with joy, energy. You can live with authenticity, and you can just have life be a totally different experience than you're going through. You don't have to put up with it. And it's also still, I will stand by this, that it is the number one factor being ignored by medical protocols. You can do all the medications, you can do all the natural therapies, you can do all these lifestyle measures, but if you don't pay attention to cortisol and stress, you can only get too far. So I'm excited to dive in because I've seen it firsthand and watched so many people just completely change their lives by just taking a second to reflect on, hey, wait a minute, I might be impacted by stress more than I think.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Like, let's talk about all
Yeah.
the different types of stress. I think most people think of stress as like financial worries or relationship strife, and that's certainly a part of it, but there's so many more aspects to it. So can we
Oh,
talk a little bit about the different types of stress and things that maybe people can like think about their own life and go, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. Because I bet there's a lot more things that people aren't really thinking of that do fall into that bucket.
yeah, I think I look at it as basically two big buckets. This makes it a little bit easier to understand. Is you've got external stress, which is everything you just named, financial, marriage, kids, life, blah, 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 all the stuff that seemingly is out of your control, but just falls in your lap and you got to figure out how to deal with, right? But there's also internal stress, and this is what's happening inside the body. So something as simple as, let's say you get a cold, that's stressful. The body finds that to be stress. You have a nutrient deficiency, let's say a deficiency in B12, that's stressful on the body. A deficiency in iron, that's stressful on the body. Perimenopause, menopause, diabetes, changes in anything metabolic is an internal stress, and they feed each other. So an external stress has an impact on cortisol, which has an internal response, which causes an internal stress. And that internal stress then causes an external stress. Because I don't know about you, but when you don't feel well, if you're not sleeping well, or let's say your periods are horrible, you're snappy. And so then you project that into your life outwardly, and then those stresses just continue to pile on. And we get caught in what I call a stress hamster wheel. And the thing is sometimes all it takes is for us to just kind of back up for a second and be like, okay, what are all the pieces here that are being impacted? And how can I prepare my body internally for the external stress that is going to continue to come at me, right? No matter what I do. I
Yeah.
had someone say to me once, and this was such a great statement. I don't know why I don't use it more, but somebody said, stress is optional. And it really is, actually, if you think about it, because it's how you look at it. It's how you view it through your eyes, through your senses, through your nervous system is what stress is. I could look at a bear. I commonly use this thing where you're in the woods, you're walking from a bear, you see a bear and your body goes, right? Your blood pressure goes up, your heart starts to beat, all these things start to happen. But what if the bear was a cute little cub? Would your response be different? Like it's still a wild animal, but maybe in your brain, you're like, oh, it's a cute little cub. And then you don't have the same stress response. So how you view the world actually changes the way your body responds to stress, which then starts to impact that hamster wheel. So it's not as simple as divorce and money issues. Pretty much all of my clients, when I ask them, do you have stress? They say, oh, well, my life is pretty good. I have a husband, I have a job, I have kids. I don't know. Yeah, I guess there's stress, but I have nothing to be stressed over. And I just point to my phone and say, do you have one of these? Because it bings all day long. Is anyone else like bing, bing, buzz, bing, bang, right? There's always something going off. And every time we have any sort of stimulus to our nervous system, that is a bear. And we have to deal with that. And if we don't deal with that, we create more stress. Does that kind of help see how it's an
Yeah.
example? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so many things. And I think that we just really have to expand our mind around all of those different sources. Like you said, nutrient deficiencies, blood sugar imbalances, toxin exposures, all of these things. And it does sort of start to feel like it's impossible to deal with it all. Like, why even bother? Because stress is coming at me from everywhere. Some of it I don't have any control over. And it can feel a little overwhelming and like fruitless to even try. But like you said, the perception of the stress actually matters a whole lot more than simply all of the different types of stress coming at us. They've actually done research around the people who like live the longest with the same kind of stress
Mhm.
were the ones that were like, oh, I'm good. Nothing. They literally perceived no stress, even
Mhm.
though they had the same stressors as the rest of us. And so the more we can get our mind around that and then implement practices that do reduce our stress loads and the things coming at us
Mhm.
and make us stronger to handle the ones that do come at us, there's just so much we can do. So I just definitely want people to not feel overwhelmed and like it's
Yeah.
impossible because there is a lot you can do.
Well, yeah, and it's actually fairly simple. Like I know it sounds like, oh my gosh, this lady's stressing me out. But here's the thing. The research is if you are, let's say you're triggered by fear. When you're triggered by fear, it changes your brain chemistry. It activates nervous system and changes your brain chemistry. But if you remove the fear, so it comes a lot more to us trusting our body, trusting experiences, learning from experiences, and instead of looking at something as a tragedy, looking at it as a growth opportunity. I mean, I've lost my mom, my dad, my grandparents. I'm an only child. I don't have any of my family left, right? And I think it's real easy for me to say, oh, my life sucks, I'm lonely, or whatever. Instead, I said, okay, how can I learn from this? How can I take the emotions I went through and how I felt and put it forward and teach other people that life does go on and we can get past this and we can use this opportunity to grow. It changed the way I look at tragedy. Now I actually see it as a blessing because I wouldn't be here spreading my knowledge to anyone if they wouldn't have died. If I was just having a happy-go-lucky life, I don't know, I'd probably work in a 9 to 5 job, just kind of going through. I mean, so everything that happens in our life, we have to trust that there is a process to it. And it is about if you're not fearful, you don't have that change in chemistry that causes more fearful moments. If I always think there's going to be a bear, I'm going to start imagining a bear, right? And then when I'm going to sleep, my brain's going to say, wait, there's a bear. And I'm going to wake up, right? So it's actually fairly straightforward. We have to teach ourselves to not give into the fear and accept. And that's daily practice every day. It's just small little 1 minute things.
I love it. I love it. So let's dive into a little bit of the practice of that. What does that look like? If you can identify your source of stress, whether it be fear or whatever that is, where do you start? How do you build up this resiliency?
I look at it in 4 different ways, 4 pillars. I look at nutrition, exercise, supplement, and mindset. And you have to do all 4 together. Nutrition, it's about feeding the nutritional deficiencies that come from stress response. So when we have a hormone called cortisol that's released when we have a stressful moment, whatever bear it may be, an email that we didn't want to read. It could be as simple as that, right? When that's released, we deplete B vitamins, we deplete vitamin C, we deplete magnesium. Our whole balance shifts. And this is how we start to develop disease, right? Because we're shifting our body in order to adapt to that bear. It's a beautiful thing that we can adapt to something like that, but it depletes our nutrition. So we have to replenish that, number one. And you can do that through food. You can also do that with supplement, depending on how significant those are. So that covers 2 of those. On the supplement arena, there's also some herbs that you can use that help rebalance out the cortisol rhythm. Things that help calm the cortisol at night so you can sleep and help kind of boost that adaptive response during the day. And these are all very easily used. If you're working with somebody who's familiar with them, they have very minimal side effect. And help balance out this rhythm because cortisol rhythm is a hormone, just like blood sugar regulation is a hormone, sex hormones, thyroid, they adapt to the situation. So if you can help the body adapt in a healthy way with supplement, it's only going to help. The exercise portion is one that this is one that's always a point of contention because most of the people that come to me are like, I don't get it, Dr. Pingel. I work out every single day. I go to Orange Theory. I do CrossFit. And I'm gaining weight and my blood sugar's not getting any better and my hair's falling out and this and that. And I'm like, whoa, hold up. So when we push ourselves physically, it can have a couple reactions. It can either go to a fight or flight, another cortisol response, or it can go to our parasympathetic nervous system, which is how we're calm. So I would ask everyone to ask, when you do your workout, are you in a calm state? Because if you're pushing yourself to a point of exhaustion, that's stressful. That doesn't mean that you sit on the couch and watch TV, but it means you have to adapt how you exercise. Maybe it's walking and mindfulness while walking. Maybe it's Pilates or strength training. I personally dance. People call me affectionately the hip hop energy doc because I dance to release stress. That's what I do. And I don't get burned out when I do that. So exercise is something that needs to not only strengthen the body, but also needs to calm the mind. You need to be focused, right? Yeah. And then the mindset has to be drawn into all of this. And it's little things like gratitude and reframing, some things I've already talked about, where it's like, okay, reality check. Where am I on this? Am I overreacting? I'm a mom. I overreact to everything. It's like taking training to learn not to do that. Or not always think the worst. And it's just an issue of taking a few minutes, 1 minute an hour to breathe and ground. And ask yourself, is there anything that I'm dealing with right now that maybe is out of my control, that I can't control right now? because we have this tendency to control it, and that stresses us out when it doesn't go our way. And there's so many things in our life that we think we can control that we can't. We actually cannot control the next thing that's going to happen necessarily. The next negative thing we can't, right? We can control it in a positive way, but we can't control, it's like I remember my son starting to drive. He's 16. And I'm like, oh Lord, he's going to go out in the streets and he's going to run into a car. And I'm like, I have no idea if he really is. So why am I worrying about it? I can't deal with it till it happens. So being more present and more mindful of the things that really we should be putting our energy towards, I think is probably the biggest exercise and probably the hardest and the biggest struggle for most people, because we really do want to people please. And we want everyone else to be happy before we're happy, because we don't want to be seen as selfish or ungrateful or whatever, right? We just want to take everything on. So to all you overachievers out there, like me, take a breath. And realize that the more you take care of yourself, the more you can serve other people, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's kind of take that same thread and talk a little bit more about where are people going wrong? What are some things that they're either doing in their life or not doing in their life, or things that they're surrounded by, or like whatever? Where are people getting it wrong?
Yeah, I think they're getting it wrong and thinking that they have full control over exactly what their body's going to do. Oh, I'm going to eat this diet and I'm going to eat it perfectly every single day. And I'm never going to take a misstep. And I'm going to work out every single day at this exact workout. And I'm going to do all these things. But what they're missing is they're disconnected between their head and their body. And the bottom line is, look, if it's a diet that you have to be perfect on in order to completely keep everything, it's not going to work long term. We all have missteps. We all have life. We all have things. Whatever you're doing has to be adaptable. And if we're beating ourselves up every time we take a misstep, we're just perpetuating the same problem. So, for example, like a lot of people are looking to get rid of their belly fat, right? And they're told, oh, well, it's insulin resistance or it's a diabetic process or whatever, which it very well may be. So they're controlling it simply by diet and exercise, but they're not taking the time to lower that cortisol response by using adrenal herbs, by using the nutrition. The nutrition portion is missing there, and the mindfulness portion is missing there. If you're constantly firing cortisol, that stimulates insulin. And when insulin is stimulated, it goes up, right? Right. And that drops the blood sugar. And guess what? The body thinks that's really stressful. So what does it do? It says, oh my gosh, my blood sugar is dropping. I better hang on to it. Let me pack on some fat, right? To save your life. So if your body's in a reactive mode where it's always trying to save your life, you're starving it, you're not eating enough food, you're not giving it proper rest, it's not getting enough hydration, it's not getting enough downtime, it's stressed out. And when it's stressed out, it's going to put more weight on the middle. And I see this all the time, particularly with women who come to me just exhausted because they're doing everything, quote, right. And it's not working, right? And that's where I think people go wrong. They try to do it right. I mean, if we just sit back and we listen to our body, we learn how to connect with pain. Let's say you have a pain in your elbow. Why? Right? Ask the question, why? Thank you, body. Why are you telling me that something is here? What do I need to be mindful to? What emotion? What physical thing? What emotional thing do I need to be aligned with? There's a ton of research, and I'm certainly not a Reiki expert in any way, but there is a ton of research on emotions and pain, for example, or, emotions and conditions, getting so far and then holding on to some emotion deep in our gut that we won't let go of or we don't want to face. And we can only get so far in our health. Our brain is connected to our body. So we need to remember that through the process and give yourself some grace. For heaven's sakes, we can't always be perfect. Are you a perfectionist or a past healed perfectionist?
I think we all have some aspect of that. And I definitely see that in the clients that I work with that are the most stuck.
Yeah.
Is like you said, they're hyper focused on every little thing and they're tracking every morsel and they're testing their blood sugar 100 times a day and they're doing 15 workouts a day and they're like trying to micromanage every aspect, which is completely undermining the entire process.
Yeah.
And therefore they're stuck.
Well, yeah. And I think we have the left brain and the right brain thing going on there, right? So the left brain's like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to analyze everything. I'm going to find out why. I'm going to do everything perfectly, whatever. And the right side of the brain is really more on that creative, let it go, trust type thing, which is, why I'm telling people often, hey, what do you do for a hobby? What do you like to do? What's fun for you? When I was going through all these stresses of life and I was in medical school and having kids, I stopped dancing. And when I was a kid, that's what I did. I danced. If you wanted to find me, there was music on and I was dancing, and that was just the way it was. And to stop all that and then think as an adult, well, I can't go back and dance. I mean, I'm an adult. Like, I can't go to a dance class. That's ridiculous. And what I realized in it all is that I had lost that creative outlet that I had always relied on to pull me out of those moments. And I went back to dance class at 40 some years old in a group of teenagers and jumped into an advanced hip hop class and said, I can do this. And it was stressful at the beginning and scary. And I felt like I was jumping off a ledge. But at the same time, when I'm learning a routine and I'm dancing, I'm not thinking about my kids at that moment. I'm not thinking about whether or not there's groceries in the fridge. I'm not, all these little things that run through our head constantly. It's gone. I'm thinking about they're telling me to put my arm here on this moment, and I have to put my arm here at this moment. And those are the things that reconnect what you're telling your body to do, and it does it, right? I
Yep.
used to be able to not do the choreography or remember the choreography, and now I can. And what I also found improved was my memory. My memory improved greatly because
Yep.
I was able to learn how to pull myself out of that left brain of constantly trying to remember everything. Sometimes you just can't. You just have to be in the moment, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, accessing that creative side is really important. And I think we get really caught up in that do everything perfect. I'm going to take control of this type scenario. And our body really needs to calm to be focused, not
Yep.
stimulated. And we stimulate coffee, energy drinks, hard
Yep.
exercise. We're stimulating all the time. And I'm with my kids, I see it quite a bit. We are, as a society, ridiculously overstimulated.
Yes. Yes. And we
Everything's
don't
over
rest
emotion.
well.
No, we don't at
We
all.
we think resting is watching TV,
I know. And
but
that's
that's not
stimulation.
rest. That's not letting your brain shut off. That's not letting your creativity kick in. That's not allowing for anything actually restful.
100%. A great test is see if you can put your cell phone in a drawer at 5 p.m. and not look at it till 7 a.m. the next day. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Because you'll be like, oh gosh, what do I, what did I miss? And if you notice that you have those little stimulations where you're like, oh, I'm missing something or whatever, that's cortisol. That's your bear right there. And you can tell it's already primed to go. And our baseline for what's normal has raised. So our calm is no longer calm. We have to actually take ourselves there with breath and, mindfulness and all of that. And it's hard and it takes time. So I do want everyone out there to realize that you're not going to be perfect at this. It is not going to happen. So drop that expectation. I've been trying to meditate for freaking 5 years. I'm still not great at it, but I try. I show up, I sit down, I do it. And that's my win for the day. Whether or not I can truly get my mind to focus where I want it to go, whatever. I do what I can.
Mhm.
Um, you're not going to be perfect at this because you're going to be challenged constantly. And that's what makes life fun is challenge and excitement and things
And
not
it'll
going
be
your way.
different day to day. There will be
Totally.
days when you're like, oh, that was so easy and I feel so amazing. And then the next day you're like, wait, I can't shut my mind off for 2 seconds. It's going to vary day to day. Don't get frustrated. Stick with it. Even if it's a 1 minute, do it.
1 minute. 1 minute an hour.
Breathe,
That's all I say.
walk. Yeah,
Just breathe.
something.
Focus on breath for 1 minute an hour. Like just set a time. Use your phone to its advantage and set a timer that says breathe. Because we don't breathe. We really don't. And I see that in electrolyte panels all the time. Like this always out of whack because we hold our breath. We hold ourselves so taut. Our shoulders are up. Just taking a minute to be like, are my shoulders raised? Like, should I lower them? Is my core pulled in? How's my posture look? Just being aware of where your body is and what impacts your body when you're under stress, where you hold stress, and visualizing that, letting go, little things like that. And this could be 15 seconds. Like everyone has 15 seconds, I think,
Yeah.
an hour,
Yeah.
to do that. Um,
The problem with these things is they're so easy to do, but they're also really easy to not do.
Totally. It's easy to
Mhm.
forget. There's other
Yep.
things to do. Like,
Yep.
it's just like the gym, oh yeah, I'll go to the gym, but I'm busy this week. I've got so and so coming into town. I got this meeting, whatever. I actually started, one of the things I did when I started to take my health back and just said I'm done with it was I started scheduling appointments with myself. So, and I still do that to this day. So like, even if my patients go on, I do concierge medicine so they can log on and book with me when needed. There'll be a block and it'll be because I'm at HIPAA class or because I'm meditating or because, and I open up blocks of time to do work. And when I do work, I'm 100% focused and I'm given 120%. And then I'm giving 120% to myself,
Yep.
In a different block. And
Yep.
that's something that, I always say utilize the technology to its advantage, because obviously we're not going to get rid of cell phones, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to tape answering machines so you don't get your message until you get home. But that shows my age. So,
Well, yeah, it was a different life back then for sure, and had its pros and cons. But yeah, it was definitely less stress for sure.
I think there was still stress. I think it's just there wasn't as overstimulation. I think stress has always been there. I think it's a difference between stress and how stimulated our nervous systems are. It's stimulated by, you were saying earlier about toxins, even like what we put on our skin, laundry detergent, air quality. And then now we have these constant sources of information coming from 8,000 places. I mean, you could have 6 adrenal experts on, and we all may have a slightly different opinion. Which one do you listen to? And that's an overstimulation to the brain as well and keeps you in that left brain. So back out. If you're feeling that, just back out, go do something creative, draw, sing. Singing is actually fantastic because it stimulates the vagus nerve and calms the body down. So humming, whistling, singing, all things that can release that stress. Get up and move, shake it out. Like we used to do in preschool when they'd say, get all the things out, just get up and jump up and down. Things like that can really make a huge difference, and they're simple. So if you ever feel that, whenever you feel that, just say to yourself, I need to move. I need to do something.
Yep.
I need to breathe.
Change your state. Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Walk outside. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this stress actually manifests in your life. We've talked a little bit about the blood sugar piece and some of those aspects, but how might this turn into a condition or turn into a disease or grow into some diagnoses?
Yeah. So cortisol is linked to every single system in our body. So when I was approached many years ago to write a book, they said, well, can you write a book about adrenals? And I was like, well, I can, but what part? My gosh, they're connected to everything. So I was sitting in a coffee shop and I had a napkin and a pen and I put cortisol in the middle and I started to draw, how does cortisol affect the heart? How does it affect the gut? How does it affect your mood? It connects to everything. So whenever cortisol is stimulated, it is your body trying to save your life. Now, that can be good in an acute instance, right? If you really did just see a bear in a moment, or you were jumping out of a plane, you're going to want cortisol on your side, right? But when that's happened constantly, the body adapts. And it adapts by changing other hormones, by changing nutrition. And this has a direct and indirect on the cardiovascular system. So I see it cause increased blood pressure, increased cholesterol, because cortisol is made from cholesterol. It causes inflammation. So you'll see changes in inflammatory markers in the body, which have an impact not only on the cardiovascular system, but also on pretty much every other system, immune system, gut, It does have a direct effect on the immune system. And we actually saw this in the most recent years. We saw that people with more stress and higher cortisol levels were experiencing viral loads that were much higher than other people. So there was a lot of research on that as well. Cortisol basically says, am I going to run and save my life? Or am I going to have sex, build my immune system, repair my cells, digest my food? It's one or the other. If the body's scared and it's running, it's going to do only what it needs to run. So this impacts every single aspect of your body. And I don't think people draw that connection between all these different areas often. And this is why often when you do have perfectionists and people that control everything, they do tend to get sick often.
Yeah.
They're constantly worrying about everything else, and that flu just runs right by. It's like, hey, or if you were just sitting there waiting for it and you saw it, you could grab it, throw it away, right? If you were just calm sitting on your porch and someone walks on your property that you don't want, you'd be like, hey, go away. But if you're busy, frantic, running through the house, trying to do 8,000 things, they could walk right onto your property, right? So that's how it is with the immune system too. We see a lot of autoimmune disease. I think it was 80% of people who have been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease say that they've had a major stressful event within 2 years prior or something. I might be changing the stat slightly, but it's something around that. And even just seeing in recent years, the increase in anxiety and depression and just overall anxiousness, the rates of, I don't want to call it mental health, because it's almost normalized now. I'm not talking about a clinical state. I'm talking about us just being anxious and on edge all the time are causing impacts on on our blood sugar and on our digestion. And if you can't digest, you can't have nutrients. It just goes on, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my napkin looked like that. It was like arrows everywhere. And I was like, oh my Lord, how am I going to write a book on this? And I did. And when I broke it all down, I was like, wow, I can't think of a single condition that isn't somehow influenced by cortisol in some way.
Yeah.
And yet, there is not a single treatment for that in the conventional model. Not one. There's no medication for that, folks. None. And I don't want to take medication anyway. But if
Yep.
you wanted to, there is none because it's not recognized,
Yep.
right? It's just dismissed as life. And I just refuse to believe that because there's so much we can do.
So if you were to run labs on someone, first of all, what are your favorite kind of go-to labs to really assess someone's adrenal picture?
Yeah, so I actually try to make it simple by just looking at blood labs. There
Okay.
are ways that you can do, cortisol tests to look at rhythm in saliva, and I do that occasionally. But for me, what I'm looking at more so is we know cortisol's out of rhythm. If you come to me and you say I got all this stuff going on, I know it's out of rhythm. So then the next question is, well, if it's out of rhythm, how much has it impacted metabolically? So I'm looking at things, and by the way, this is how it's going to be fast when I rattle this off. So I'm going to preface this by saying, if you go to any of my social media posts anywhere and you type in the word labs, it will send you a lab list. I think I might have given it to you as well to
Yep.
share.
Yep.
Just a good overview. But I'm looking at blood counts, metabolics, inflammatory markers, hormones, thyroid, cortisol, and DHEA, which are the adrenal within it all, nutritional markers. Because if cortisol is out of rhythm, it is having an impact somewhere else. It is impossible to not be. So we have four basic areas of our endocrine system, of our hormone system. We've got the adrenal hormones, the thyroid, the sex hormones, and the blood sugar. If one of those is off, somewhere else in there, it's going to be off. It's like a scale. They have to be balanced all the time. And so when one is imbalanced, it's going to cause a decline somewhere else, like a domino. Our body is very similar to just a large conveyor belt that's moving along, and we're building things and putting it together. Our product is energy, right? That's what we build. We build energy so we can build more things. So if there's something missing in that conveyor belt, number one, that's stressful. And number two, you can't build what you want to build. So the body has to detour and build something else and adapt. And every time we adapt, we change our metabolics. Every time we can adapt favorably or we can adapt negatively, but we're going to adapt. So the key with treating people with adrenal issues is seeing where is the body adapting now and how can we give a more favorable adaptation? How can we change that and put the piece back in the conveyor belt so that the energy can be produced so the body can keep moving forward? Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
So
lab
then,
list is long, so I shared it.
yeah, it's so much easier when it's all written on a document. You can just reference back to it. So yeah, we'll definitely link that up in the show notes.
Cool.
So once you have that information from someone, and I don't know, just pick one of the conditions that you might see on a lab and give an example of then what would you do?
Yeah, thyroid's a great example. So there are multiple thyroid numbers, and most doctors just check TSH, maybe a T4, and they say, oh, your thyroid's fine. Well, there's some conversions that go on there that happen based on the stress response. So, for example, if your body's under stress, it may decide to hang on to some thyroid and not use it. It likes to store instead of utilize when it's under stress. So you may have higher levels of reverse T3 instead of T3. So the body makes T4 and it can go either direction. It can be utilized as T3 or it can be stored as reverse T3. I see a lot of elevated reverse T3s, which cause Hashimoto's. It causes an adaptation to the immune system. And the immune system now starts essentially attacking the thyroid. Over my many years of doing this, more often than not, by just treating the adrenals, just looking at those four pillars, the Hashimoto's antibodies go away, the reverse T3 drops, the T3 goes up, and now other favorable things start to happen. So just by looking at the adrenals, that's absent of even treating the thyroid, and then if you can support the thyroid with nutrition, it will even optimize even further. I see this with estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance is very, very, very common in adrenal fatigue because the body wants to store. It doesn't have time. If you're running from a bear, you're not going to stop to have sex, right? Your hormones are like, no, I'll send it over there, right? You're not. You're not going to stop to digest your food. You're not going to stop to poop.
Yep.
Constipation, huge one as well. So, I don't know, these conditions are all easily adapted often by just bringing in some of the herbs and nutrition that we talked about. Just really looking at those labs and saying, here's the imbalances, let's support those and let's see where the body takes us. And if the body takes us 95% of the way by just supporting the adrenals, awesome. Not only have we benefited that, but we've also benefited every single other area of the body at the exact same time. And then we can go in and play cleanup mode. Okay, what's left? Is there anything else we need to really dive into? And what is the body trying to tell us here? And then make those small little changes moving forward.
Yeah, I love it.
You'll
I
always
love it.
have a greater impact. Yeah.
I love how simple it is. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big, complicated $20,000 package of things. We can actually get to the root of this stuff pretty simply if we just get back to the foundations.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Most of my clients I work very closely with, because it's more than just, oh, here's your lab review. It's here's your lab review. Here's what your body's trying to say. Here's how we're going to support it. Now, where are you going to come in? And how do I help you get your mindset around what we're actually trying to do here? Because we try to look for that cause and effect thing, but often that's what's stopping us. We just have to kind of be like, okay, body, I'm listening. I'm going to give you what you need, to heal. Our bodies are amazing.
They really are. And they will heal themselves if we just get out of the way and give it what it needs.
We're always in our own way.
We are.
All the time.
All the time. Yep. Awesome. Well, share a little bit about your book so everybody can go find that. And then we will definitely link up your lab list in the show notes as well.
Awesome. My book is Total Health Turnaround.
Love it.
You can find it on Amazon. You can also find it on my website. And if you order it through my website, I will sign it. So if you want a signed copy, don't order from Amazon because I don't get my little fingers on that one. But it does go into every single chapter, talks about how stress impacts that area of the body. So let's say we didn't talk about heartburn, but heartburn's a huge one, right? People have GERD and heartburn, 100% linked to stress. So I have a whole chapter on talking about how is that? Why do we need to add acid, not remove acid? How does it impact the thyroid? How does it impact the hormones? Perimenopause is kind of thrown around. Oh yeah, perimenopause. What does that mean? It means before menopause. That's all that means. I can't put a finger on what exactly that means because everyone's different. So this goes into how does cortisol affect the hormones and what symptoms might it be giving to you and what can you do about it? It goes into heart, it goes into immune system, it goes into insomnia, depression, anxiety, and how stress impacts all of those. And then at the end, it gives you kind of a little preview of the 4 pillars, a nutrition plan, an exercise plan, talks about some supplements that you can discuss with your doctor, and also a mindfulness plan. Just a real basic starting point for just taking your life back because you deserve it. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, it's definitely total health. So I think that's an apropos name and perfect for all of the things we've talked about today. It's all right there in the book. I love it.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your amazing wisdom with everybody today. You have a powerful story and a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. So thank you so much. Do you have any final words you'd like to leave everybody with?
Come follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Say hello. Tell me where you found me. I really do just want to reconnect us all. So if I can connect with you in some way by just saying, hey, nice to meet you, I would love to do that. And I have live Q&As every Friday as well. So I guess my word is, give yourself some grace. Realize this is all a process. You're doing great. It doesn't have to be perfect. One moment at a time. And just keep making one choice at a time that benefits your health. And that's the reward. And that's what I just want you to focus on is just one choice at a time. So, and thank you so much for just giving me space to just be me and chat about all things stress today.
Yes, I love it. Love it. I learned so much today. I'm sure everybody else did as well. So we will link up all of your information in the show notes so people can just click and go find you very easily on all the places and get your book and all the things. So thank you so much. Thanks for being a faithful listener to the podcast. I'd love it if you left me a 5-star review on this podcast so that others can more easily find this valuable information. Did you know I also work one-on-one with clients? I approach solving health challenges like I approached solving crimes, by conducting a thorough investigation into your case. Sadly, hundreds of millions of people in the US have insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes, and the vast majority have no idea. I'm here to fix that. If you struggle with low energy, stubborn weight, hypertension, sleep disturbances, or any other undesired symptoms, let's talk. All you have to do is schedule a free call. The link will be in the show notes. And no, you do not need to live near me.